So, Ali, let's talk about this booster tip.
Yeah, the booster tip is a new technology that's been added to the ESX file. I think it's the only file out on the market here in North America that has that technology. And what it is probably the best analogy for it is that up until now, all the files that have been on the market could best be described as getting fat too soon. So the tip of the file was getting large and get to the point of the ISO size sooner than it had to be, right? So as a result, the best analogy would be that the tip of the conventional NiTi rotary files, as well as hand files, are like this tip of a Boeing 747. It's a big, bulky head. It gets bulky too quickly. The booster tip could best be analogized as the difference between the tip of a Boeing 747 and a Concorde, right? So you have a more gradual taper, and this gradual taper allows the tip to have less potential for ledging kind of capability.
It's almost a guiding tip.
Yeah, it's a guiding tip, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. So what's happened is actually the transition angles have been flattened so that you have, instead of just 3 cutting angles for this type of a triangular cross-section, you at the very tip have 6 cutting blades. But the bottom line is that the tip is guided through these surfaces that have been cut, and that helps keep the file centered at the tip, which is a critical part. And however, a question that always comes up is, well, is it still a size 35? Is it still a size 35? Yes, it absolutely is. Because based on the ISO standards, you have to get to a 0.35 millimeter at D1. And for some reason in the past, manufacturers have rushed to get to 0.35, at 0.2 millimeter from the tip, unnecessarily. Right. But the ESX size from 0.2 to 0.3 was getting to size 35. It's pushed it back to about 0.7, if you will, 0.6 or 7. So that helps, have that gradual taper to a 35 at still maintaining ISO standards, but it helps make the file tip much more of a guiding tip. The analogy would be a pencil that's a triangular in cross-section, and you put a pencil in a pencil sharpener.
Okay.
And what you end up with is a booster tip. And what that is basically the lead portion is guiding and going in, and then you get to the triangular part and it starts to cut.
So conceptualizing this instrument, when somebody says, I'm using a 35 instrument, it is not right at the tip. That's a finite space. Yeah. But it's 1 millimeter back. It's reached a 35. And how it gets there, whether it does it this way or if it does it more confined way, that's going to influence the ability of this instrument to move and be guided through this space.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And you can feel that difference? I mean, when you're using the instrument, can you feel it?
Yeah, absolutely, because the tip is guiding more and now allowing me to use a little bit, 1 or 2 less files. So that's the key part of it. So we'll talk about that, of how that affects the particle soon. But as you can see, when you see this instrument here in motion, you can see those cut areas are the areas that have been flattened, if you will, and those help push back the point to which the file becomes, the size it is. And the finishing files, all finishing files on the ESX system have this booster tip, and it helps them basically get the benefits of this guiding tip and help reduce the number of files you need.
I can remember when I first had the opportunity to work with this instrument, and immediately I felt it in terms of its ability to feel almost as if it was more smoothly reaching the area that I was working in, where I was going to. Are you finding that it is also more efficient, that the amount of time that you leave it in the canal?
It's efficient in the sense that you need less files, so that makes it efficient in that very way, because up until now we've had the tips of different size files do the partial engagement to get to a given size. But here now we're able to, skip basically a couple files in that process, and that's quite helpful. So why don't we come back, and now that we know the design features of the file and the system, let's talk about some of the overall principles and concepts and philosophy behind the ESX system.